Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of Clearance Rack Superheroes. This is just a little video series that we're going to be doing weekly from now on, where myself and hopefully a guest, hopefully I'm not just talking to myself, sit down and talk about the great superhero cinema and television that we get to see today. So, for our first episode, obviously, we had to talk about the Snyder Cut, Zack Snyder's Justice League. There's nothing else that we could really talk about that would be as good of a first episode as this one's going to be. As we all talk about how great of a film it was and how everything about it was perfect, right, Sam?
Absolutely.
Yes. So this is Sam. He is our guest for this week, and we've known each other for a long time. We're always texting each other about anything that's going on in the superhero world, whether it's the Marvel shows, whether it's the Snyder Cut, things like that. So I knew I had to have him for our first episode, so he'd come in and say something that's pretentious about movies that have to do with people that just go bam bam. So
Glad to be of service.
So before we begin, I just wanted to kind of give you a little bit of an idea of what the Snyder Cut is, or Zack Snyder's Justice League. Sorry, you say the Snyder Cut for 4 years, it becomes difficult to be like, oh yeah, Zack Snyder's Justice League, because now it has an actual name. It's not just something that we talk about on Twitter. So if you're not familiar, which at this point it's kind of crazy if you don't, but if you have somehow not been on Twitter at all for the past 4 years and have never Googled superheroes or anything like that, the Snyder Cut is a version of the Justice League movie that we got in 2017 that is true to Zack Snyder's vision, the original director. So early in 2017, he unfortunately had to step down because of something that, a tragedy that hit his family. Naturally, obviously, you don't really want to focus on movies when you're going through something like that. So it totally makes sense. So they brought in Joss Whedon, whether it was before he left or after, really just depends on which article you're looking at. And to finish the movie, I would like to say to stay true to Zack's vision, but that's clearly not true, as we have seen in this movie that we just saw on Thursday. So yeah, that was 4 years ago, and ever since then, we got the movie, the Joss Whedon Justice League, or the Justice League, depending on what you like to call it, in 2017 in November, I believe, and it was I don't want to say complete disappointment, but it definitely had a lot more negatives than positives. He changed. Joss came in. He did a ton of reshoots. He gave it his own spin, and you're probably familiar with Joss's deal now. After 2 Avengers movies and all kinds of TV shows, so it was very different than what we had come to expect from Zack Snyder after his work on Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, 300, Watchmen, all that. The Snyder stuff. But so ever since then, the fans, they wanted to see Snyder's original vision, very similar to how Superman 2, Richard Donner shot about 75% of that movie, and then they had Richard Lester come in and he did the rest of it, did some reshoots. Some would say ruined that movie as well. You see a trend here. But so very in that same vein, we started seeing a lot of Twitter campaigns, a lot of online petitions, which always work, calling for Zack Snyder's Justice League to come in. So for him to be able to finish that vision, give us his cut of what that movie was supposed to be. He liked to post very obscure images of what that movie could have looked like, just to tease us, how give us a little bit of crumbs just to keep us interested. He had the support of all the cast, as Joss Whedon lost support of all of the cast. So it was this campaign that went on for 4 years. And then last year was the announcement of HBO Max, the Warner Media streaming service. They finally announced it. They announced the Zack Snyder cut of Justice League was going to be worked on. It was going to give like a $70 million budget. He's going to be able to make his own vision. And everybody lost their minds, or they didn't care at all. It was kind of one or two. There wasn't really a middle. It was either you were just like, yes, this is it, this is the moment, and then you were just like, I really don't give a shit. So we finally got that, and we kind of we started seeing that process. He did some reshoots. We started getting more information. It was like a 6-hour movie, and then it was going to be a 6-episode series, and then finally we got what we were waiting for on Thursday on HBO Max. If you haven't seen it yet, go check it out. Yes, we're going to be spoiling it. That's the whole point of this whole deal. So But we finally got the Zack Snyder Justice League, 4 hours of his version of Justice League, 6 parts, including as well as a intro and an outro, and it was very Zack Snyder. um, Whether or not take that as you will, depending on how you feel about him as a director, will really color how you feel about this movie. But this is a 4-year journey. I mean, this is something that people have been wanting for years. This is something that I never thought that we would get, because I mean, who the hell listens to us? It seems like, anytime anyone goes on Twitter and gives this great idea, that's usually when the studio's like, you know what, let's do the complete opposite. So it's kind of it feels weird that this movie actually exists. I mean, I wasn't cognizant of Superman 2, obviously, since it came out in 1981, and I was negative 13 at the time. And then when I started, I didn't really watch Superman movies, but knowing about the Donner cut, getting to see that, I wasn't a part of that experience. So this is crazy. Like, this is crazy to me. I never thought that we would see something like this. You see like directors getting their cuts and everything, but it's usually of like a ultra popular movie, and they're just like, hey, there's more. And people are like, you joking? I can see The Godfather in a different format for 15 times. Like, please take all of my money. Do you need my firstborn? Here you go. So it's weird to me that this movie actually exists in the world. Sam, how do you feel about it? Let me be a little bit more specific. Mm-hmm. Going into this movie, how were you feeling?
Well, that was a great intro, first of all. Way to go, Tyler. I felt ambivalent going into this movie. I think I fall fairly in the umbrella of people that were marginally aware of what Snyder Cut is and the movement behind it, but I didn't think I really had a stake in the matter. I was like, oh, this is a cool campaign, like a funny campaign. Nothing's gonna pan out, as there's the millions of other campaigns that come out. So it was just, for me, it was an amusing kind of to see how passionate some people got about something that I thought was going to be a pipe dream. So it was definitely very interesting. And, for me, it paints a very cool and very interesting new dynamic, the relationship between a studio and social media and the audience, where just social media movement can drive $70 million of budgets. So keeping all that in mind, as Tyler mentioned in his preamble to this, I'm not the biggest how would I say this? I'm not the biggest action movie or superhero movie fan. I do enjoy it. I enjoy learning things. I enjoy Easter eggs. I enjoy the hunt of it all. I enjoy geeking out on my own time, but I'm definitely not of the camp where either they can do no wrong, and there's definitely people that feel too extreme on one side of where they can do everything wrong. There's nothing positive, and then there's people the other side, which is like, I'll kill you if you say anything negative. So I think I'm fairly in the middle. I try to keep an open mind. I did see the original, the Justice League. I did see that. I saw that one and Batman vs Superman in theaters. Mistake on my part. I tried to get a refund. They told me you can't get a refund after you watch the movie. It's usually
Sir, it's been 3 years. We're not going to honor this.
Yeah. I called them like last week. They said stop calling us. So yeah, I try to keep an open mind going into it, and I saw the hype around it. I saw the reviews, the embargoes lifting, and I saw like the positive reactions coming. So I will say I was very pleasantly surprised as how well reviewed it was, because going into it, it became a meme of sorts. So like, oh, we live in a society, Justice League. It became like a meme, and I didn't think it would actually pan out into an enjoyable movie. But I was happy to be wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's no, I totally get that, and you're right. It's even just looking at like the Twitter after the movie came out, I saw people that said this is the most glorious thing we've ever seen, and stuff like this is better than Endgame. And I was like, it's very different than Endgame. You can't really compare the two. That's not
Yeah.
really.
Yeah.
And then I saw other people that said, "Wow, so that was 4 hours," and they've said, "This is dumb," and they really just reveled in the fact that they could just, kind of just shit on the people that enjoyed it. So there are very few people, usually the people that I try to follow, because I'm not someone that, even if I don't like something, I'm not going to go in there and just say, "Oh wow, like you're a loser for liking it." Like we
Mhm.
all have our own passions, we have our own fandoms, and maybe I don't understand that, but I'm not going to put it down. Um, but this is a very polarizing movie for sure. And yeah, when I came into it, I mean, obviously I had hope. For me, you know, this guy right here,
Mhm.
he's Batman. He's one of the biggest. He's the biggest character to me. He's the biggest fandom that I have, and DC in general is one of my favorite fandoms that I have. I mean, I love Marvel, but DC is always, it's what I grew up on. It's what I one of the first shows I remember watching are things like Batman Beyond, things like Justice League, Teen Titans, all those, Static Shock. And so for me,
Yeah.
DC is ingrained into my DNA. Like anything that's DC, I'm going to go in with an open mind. Even though they've hurt me before, I am ready to get hurt again. And so I went into it. I tried not to get too hyped about it. I didn't
Mhm.
want to do. I didn't want to go in there and just be like, this is it. This is what's going to bring. This is what's going to make DC like a big hitter. I was like, look,
Mhm.
this is him getting to show what he wanted to do. Yeah, Batman v Superman. I like some of it. Some of it I didn't like. Justice League. Yes, there was some of it that was his. I'm not sure which parts of it was his that I liked, and I don't know which parts of it were his that I didn't like. So it was a very mixed feeling of trying to figure out where exactly I stood. Um, I did end up watching like a lot of Zack Snyder in the past week, so that probably influenced me more because I watched 300 for the first time. I
Yeah.
watched Batman v Superman. I watched Man of Steel to get prepared for this. I watched the original Justice League, so that probably skewed me because I became a lot bigger fan of Zack Snyder in the past week than I did before that. Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, so I tried going in with an open mind. I didn't want to just sit there and say this movie's going to suck, and I also didn't want to sit there and say this movie's going to be a 10 out of 10, which I think is a good way to go into it. Especially, you know, yeah, the trailer could be cool, but this movie could be something completely different than what the trailer says. So, and then you got like the whole 4 hours of it, and it's like, well, I
Yeah.
don't know if there's what are they going to do for that time?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I definitely, yeah, I tried going in with the open mind, wanted to be
Mhm.
optimistic. I would say I was rewarded by that attitude, and it made me appreciate this movie more than if I went in with, either extreme, really. So I'm excited to talk about it for sure. Uh, so just real quick, just what were your overall feelings about it? We'll get into like the nitty gritty of the big changes after,
Mhm.
but just give me kind of an idea of after you walked out of that 4 hour stint in your chair watching the movie. I wanted to say theater. I really want to say theater, but
One
that's
day. One day.
unfortunately is a thing of the past. But so after that 4 hour sit down, you watch 6 parts, you watch an outro. How
Mhm.
did you feel? Were you happy? Were you sad? Uh, you know, how did you feel about it? You can get into it as much as you want, and then
Mhm.
we'll start talking about some of the biggest changes that I noticed. And hopefully, if I miss something, then you'll be able to
Yeah.
sit in and say anything. So,
Yep. Well, that's a great question. That's a great segue into what I'm feeling about it. So, I actually didn't watch it in all 4 hours in one sitting. I That's the sixth of my day, and I spent the other, 5/6 of my day like sleeping. So, like, I needed to divide up the remaining 6 hours.
you got overwhelmed by how great it was, and you're like, I have to
I
take a
did, I
nap
did.
so
I
that
have
way I
to
can
take a nap every
recharge.
30 minutes. Yes, I did enjoy, and it became to me. If it's gonna sound really pretentious, it reminded me of the parts of it, how it was divided in parts 1 through 6. It did remind me of like kind of like a comic book where like each one has a chapter. So I
Right,
did enjoy
like a
that.
mini series.
like a mini series, yeah, exactly, like a little graphic novel. And each one reminded me of like a one kind of self-contained events in each. So I did enjoy that aspect. Here, to be honest, Tyler, I can kind of go back and forth with the details about it, but my favorite part about the movie is that the fact that it is unashamedly Zack Snyder. Now, let me tell you what I mean by that. I am a big fan of any director who has a clear visual artistic vision and stays true to it. You know, too often, you know, with these big tentpole, you know, studio movies, you get like people that are kind of yes men in the company, and they just like they have these, you know, these studio executives like draw out the perfect algorithmic story that sells the most toys, and they just do like the very milk toast bland rendition of it for whatever TV movie it is. But Zack Snyder, you know, he's aware of the criticism that he receives for his for his work. Too much slow mo, horrible writing, too weird color grading, and you know he says, "Fuck you, I'm gonna do it my way." And that's the first time I curse. Um, and to me, I really respect that as a enjoyer of entertainment and enjoy of art. I think, you know, yes, it is a superhero movie. Yes, there's like, you know, boom boom explosions, but at the end of the day, what he has made is extremely special and personal art that there's no mistake, there's no denying who it's made by. And to me, the visual clarity and the visual um, aspect of the movie far outweighed the other portions of the movie, the you know, namely the everything else. So that was my favorite part of the movie. Just the you know, I watched it in every hour, every chunks of. So I think I've watched it in 4 sittings. I watched an hour apiece, and in that I was able to kind of absorb everything that was happening on screen, and like I could remember things when I watched the next day, just so I could absorb it and take it in. And I think it led to a greater sense of appreciation of what he's trying to do. There's deep character studies here sometimes, especially with Cyborg's story. You know, it's a to me, Cyborg story was definitely the and and you know, I don't want to delve into the controversy here but too much, but it definitely makes sense why Cyborg is the heart of the story. It makes sense why he kind of represents the Justice League, where he starts the movie alone and broken, and at the end of the day, he is part of a group that's believes in something bigger than himself, and that's kind of the character arc that he goes through as well. And that scene with the at the end where he's in the cubes and he's telling those three fates, I guess, inside the cube that I'm not broken. And I think that was a really empowering moment for someone, whoever is maybe like, you know, watching that and, you know, keeps having people say, fix this about yourself and do. I thought it was a very empowering message about staying true to yourself. And I think, you know, the fact that Zack Snyder was able to sneak that in between the CGI fest, it spoke a lot about his attention to kind of keeping the huge spectacle moments and the small character moments intact. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think those are two great points. He definitely Zack Snyder was, you know, Snydering all over this movie, and yeah, you're right. That I cannot believe that we didn't get the Cyborg story the first time around. It's insane that they took that part out. I mean,
yeah,
that character deserves so much more. And I am so glad that we were able to get to see that story. And you're right, that moment where he said, "I'm not broken," after losing everybody close to him and being, you know, because it goes beyond just the fact that his body was destroyed and he had, you know, the mother box gave him a new body. You know, he had lost his mom and he had lost his dad. He lost, you know, going to, you know, being in college, being a kid, or well, you know, a young adult. And so everything about that says that, you know, every other person would say, yeah, I'm broken. And so I think, yeah, and you can see as the movie goes on
Mhm.
why he doesn't think that he's broken. You see him go through that. It's not an unearned, it's not
Yeah.
an unearned statement where he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm not broken," and you're like, "But you literally just sat there and just talked about how
Yeah.
terrible your life is for the past 4 hours."
Absolutely. I think what really speaks to me in the way his story was adapted is he every kind of action that he takes where he doesn't want to be seen as helpful, or he's like treating himself, he's bitter about his state, and everything like that. It's I think that the story beats that he went through, where he's like tells Diana that he's not interested, and then he sees that his dad's in trouble. So even though he doesn't like his dad, he kind of comes in to help out, and then eventually he starts kind of forming a bond with Flash and Aquaman. I think that story progression, I think it was only possible in like for an extended cut, because there's so
Mm.
many little character moments that really sell the final, like the final acts that all those individual Justice League characters do, that wouldn't be possible in the standard 90-minute movie.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, yeah,
Hmm.
because the Justice League was like 2 hours, and so
Yeah.
trying to fit that caliber of story into,
Hmm.
also we had to get these mother boxes and just stop the giant CGI villain. It
Yeah.
just wasn't gonna it wasn't gonna work. So
Mhm. Yep.
I 100% agree, and yeah, I mean for me, just go over the Snyder Cut in general before we go over the big stuff. Uh,
Mhm.
yeah, it couldn't. This movie couldn't have been. I mean, yes, I understand 4 hours is a long time, and that's a strong commitment. And it sounds a lot more daunting when you say a 4 hour movie than saying like 8 episodes of a TV series, which I do every day. If you frame it in the way that you're watching a bunch of TV show episodes, it becomes
Yeah.
a lot more palatable than saying it's a 4 hour movie, even though we're going to be doing the same amount of time. But
Yeah.
so I understand that does deter people. So I hope that they do maybe take breaks like you did and watch it, an hour a day, 2 hours a day, whatever they want to do, just to be able to at least see it once. Because I mean, I think this movie, it had everything for me. It wasn't. I'm not going to say that it didn't have its flaws. I'm not going to say that sometimes some scenes went too long. I'm not going to say that we didn't get enough of the ancient lamentation music. Uh, uh,
It intensified a lot.
it did.
Yeah.
That's like, well, the one thing on Twitter I always see is people saying
Hmm.
like,
Ancient
he
lamentation.
must, he really loved that music. he, and I feel like going into it, I had already seen those tweets, so that kind of made it more obvious to me. So I was just like,
Hmm.
holy shit, he really does love that music. But yeah, this movie, I mean, all of the character moments, getting to see these characters build into something, an actual team, something we didn't really get before. Uh, this movie was about, this really felt like it was about the Justice League and how they form. And you're right, the bond that Cyborg established with Flash, with Aquaman, we didn't get to see these bonds in the original one. It was kind of like there was like one or two moments maybe where they actually talked to each other, that they weren't arguing. And so getting to see them actually take the time to get to know each other, uh, outside of bonding during a grave robbing scene, which always skewed me out in the original Justice League movie. Getting to see them really start to meet, like get to know each other and start to notice their similarities over their differences,
Yeah.
to form that team, to form that united front, that Justice League. I thought that was great. I don't know if we get those moments in a shorter movie just because of how much was stuffed into this movie. Uh,
Hmm.
but yeah, there are so many things I loved about it. Like, I'm trying to like not go too into it because we're gonna start talking about the moments. But yeah, no, as someone who has loved DC for as long as he can remembers, this movie had so much for me. I love the style of it. Like I said, I'm a big Zack Snyder fan now, so I like the way, I love his visuals. And you're right, it is very unique. It's very Zack Snyder. You don't see those. I mean, you'll see them around, but you don't see those visuals as much as you do with like a more pedestrian director like Joss Whedon, and who's he fits the story of, or he fits whatever mold someone needs him to fit. And there are directors that are needed like that, so it's not a knock against them. But I agree, it's cool to see someone that has their own style, and Zack Snyder made sure this had his own style in every single thing that he did. And so getting to see that, like you said, getting to see his vision come to life. If I ever create something, I want it to be 100% mine. So just the catharsis of him being able to get that cut, to be able to get to make that movie that everybody wanted to see, is amazing. And then seeing people's reactions to it. So many people love this movie. It was huge. Like I am surprised at how many people like this movie, just because of how often I am so used to people just saying, "Oh, it's DC, so it's shit." Like I am honestly surprised. And yeah, the characters are great. I got to see Darkseid in live action, which was something that I've always wanted to see ever since I first met him in the Justice League cartoon. So getting to see him, even though it was more of a tease for the next one, getting to see all those characters, all those Easter eggs, like you were talking about, Black Suit Superman. See, I'm so used to saying Black Suit Spider-Man, so I almost said that. But Black Suit Superman, getting to see, so many different moments that were meaningful for all the people that have been sticking with DC through the years was amazing. And hopefully, I mean, I like to believe that the people that, may not be as familiar with DC are also seeing those moments and saying, hey, I've heard about that from a friend, or hey, I've seen something about that online. That's amazing. I can't believe they included that. So that's my hope for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, overall, I did a watch along with a couple people, and I literally at the end of it, I didn't have any words to say about the Snyder Cut. And it wasn't because I was a lack of words. I had so many things that I wanted to say about it. Because, I mean, like, I was choking up about it. Like, it was, as a DC fan, as someone that wanted to see things that I had always dreamed about come onto the screen, I got to see that. And I am lucky enough to be able to see that. And I will always appreciate that. Whatever this means for DC, whatever this means for the future of DC, I got to see Darkseid. I got to see Black Suit Superman. I got to see a story about Cyborg. I got to see everything that I got in piecemeal from everything else, I got to see in this movie. So it was so hard for me to even figure out how to talk about it. I kept trying because I wanted to do a recap for my friends and kind of give them my thoughts. And I literally was like, all I can say is this movie means a lot to me, and say a couple things. And I was like, I'm going to have to talk about this later because I just.
Yeah. It's really special.
Yeah.
It's that's the thing, and Tyler, you know me for a long time. I'm a harsh critic of most things. But I'll be hard pressed to kind of come up with like reasons that were like deal breakers to me.
Yeah.
There was definitely flaws, like you said. 4 hours could have been 2.5 or maybe 3. Maybe 5 or 6 less ancient lamentation musics.
I think you mean 5 or 6 more.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's what I meant. There was definitely scenes, that I thought didn't really serve the purpose of the plot. It's definitely seemed like a B-roll kind of thing where he shot it, so it just put it somewhere random, like that scene with the Martian Manhunter pretending to be Superman's mom.
That one was. Yeah, that was out of left field.
It kind of came out of nowhere. Yeah, it kind of came out of nowhere. That was a little jarring. There was also. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, it also kind of cheapened the moment. Mm-hmm. It was because it was someone who had lost the love of their life, bonding with someone who had a strong relationship with that person, and then just for it to turn out that it was Martian Manhunter, and it would just it felt wrong.
Imagine, in my head, like a week later, Lois meets his mom, and he's like, "Oh, hey, thanks for coming by my apartment the other day. That really helped me pick me up." And Lois and Superman's mom's like, "What the fuck are you talking about?"
She's like, sure.
Yeah, thanks.
She's lost her mind.
She's lost. Oh, super. So moments like that didn't really make a lot of sense, and I know maybe taking that scene out could have cut maybe 15 minutes from this 4-hour movie. There's scenes, that didn't make a lot of sense. Like, I know there's a lot of fanfare about the Flash's introduction with the slow-mo scene, but with that little accident on the road that he was saved Iris at. And I think that scene, although it's necessary to kind of like introduce Flash as a character, as this kind of a young kid, like the Tom Holland of the DC, if you will, in terms of rediscovering this bigger world than himself. I think that moment could have been shorter. I know with the hot dog scene. I know it was for like the puppies afterwards, for that joke.
You're just like, he's a crook.
He's a crook. But I think that moment can be short. So there's a lot of scenes that, like you said, kind of go on longer than they need to, or flat out don't really need to exist.
Yeah.
Like those establishing landscape shots of Bruce, who is definitely not Ben Affleck on a horse in Iceland. So like maybe like editing, someone having a little steadier hand at editing to like, hey, like, Zach, calm down. Let's not. We don't need to 15-minute
That's not the point of this movie.
But overall, none of those are those aren't deal breakers to me. Like, I kind of knew like Zack Snyder, like what to expect from this, so they weren't kind of like, oh, I rage quit this movie. To me,
Yeah.
another kind of a jarring thing, in terms of leaving the editing here, is the writing of it. Sometimes it would make a lot of sense, and a good example is the Martian Manhunter scene. Like in the screenplay, it just kind of comes out of nowhere, and then it completely is irrelevant to the plot later. And like, yeah,
Stay
you can
tuned
say
for 3 more hours.
yeah, you can say maybe it pointed Lois to go to Superman's monument a little bit, but like that's kind of stretching it,
Yeah.
So scenes like that. Also, Mira from Aquaman having a British accent despite not having one in Aquaman. Um, that was funny. And the thing is, what's funnier to me is like that was obviously one of the reshoot scenes, right? The nightmare scene. We'll get to that at the end. But it's surprising that came out after Aquaman, the movie, and still nobody corrected Zach on set. Like, hey, Zach, by the way,
He's like, no, Mira is British. Mira is British.
he's British, or I walk right now.
He's like, this is the hill I'm planning to die on.
Yeah. So the stuff like that, there were some kind of wonky visual effects. Most, like, for me, overall the movie was pretty solid VFX wise, but the whole opening scene with Wonder Woman at the bank, when she does the little crab walk to stop the bullets, the machine guns. That was,
yeah, the like sliding spinning thingy.
The sliding spinny thing it's a little jarring. It reminded me of those Scarlet Witch fast walking things, but like not as well done.
Yeah.
And the funniest thing to me was, I'm thinking of like a regular person, where the entire objective was to not blow up this building with the bomb. But on the end of the day, she ended up throwing the bomb in the air, and it still blew up the museum a little bit. And
Acceptable casualties.
I was gonna say, like, maybe that's the collateral. Like, okay, like either this whole block dies or the dome of the building dies. You decide. I just thought that was pretty funny, unintentionally funny. But yeah, it's Zack Snyder movies, and you've seen a bunch this past week. They're not really known for their comedy stylings. So, but I thought this movie was pretty funny in terms of the writing
for Snyder. Yeah.
For Snyder. With 300, Batman vs Superman, Man of Steel, they're pretty well. 300 is pretty like kind of light, but like Man of Steel and Batman vs Superman
has
is
a
very
pretty happy ending.
Yeah, it's pretty very light, family friendly. And then Man of Steel and Batman vs Superman, like, they are superhero movies, but like it is kind of like a movie, like not a lot of like positive vibes. Everyone's just kind of sulking and stuff. So that's kind of like the superhero version of Zack that I thought would be present in this movie as well, where everyone's just bitter and down and depressed. And even though that was the case for a lot of it, but I think inclusion of characters like Aquaman and Flash, they added to the levity of the movie.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And I think a lot of that is exactly what, ever since I watched Batman v Superman, I realized Zack Snyder's meant for certain characters, and he's not meant for others. So yeah, some of them he gets, and some of them he tries to just shoehorn into his vision of them, even if that's not the way that most people would expect him to be. Obviously, his version of Superman is very, very divisive for people. Like, love Henry Cavill, but yeah, Superman sometimes is a little bit too much for me. But yeah, no, I think that he understood a lot better about what he wanted from Aquaman and Flash, and that is why they were such standout characters. Because yeah, for Flash, he was like, Flash needs to be the comedy, like he needs to be the kid, like you said, the Tom Holland Spider-Man, which he totally is. He totally nailed that. And he's gonna be the one that's goofing around. He's like, yeah, this is my first battle. Well, you got Batman over there is like, I've seen some shit. So yeah, no, I definitely think so.
Yep.
So that kind of let's go ahead and start unpacking some of the things that we saw. So one of the biggest differences that I saw in this film were how Zack treated the characters versus Joss Whedon. So let's talk about how do you feel about his portrayal of Aquaman and how it fits into the larger DC narrative?
Yeah, I think he first. I think I don't recall, and I haven't seen the original Justice League in a while. I don't think after the first time actually. I haven't had the heart to watch it again. But if I recall correctly, he didn't have a lot of the interactions with the other team members as much in the original Justice League, where he just kind of showed up like in the middle of the movie, and then towards the end is when he did the little surfing in the air with the guy on the trident. I think Joss kind of painted him as like a fratty bro, like, sup dude, cowabunga, aqua bro. And I think Zack did lean into that a little bit, but I think he did add some nuances to like his mother's legacy, and like the weight that royalty in Atlantis, and how that manifests itself as a hero, and despite his initial reluctance to help Batman, how he felt compelled, like after Atlantis was attacked, and he understood that this is a serious thing. I think that the transition felt a little more smooth to me in this movie than it did in the original.
Yeah, I actually watched Aquaman the day after I watched this one. I have to tell you, Zack Snyder's portrayal of Aquaman is so much more in line with the Aquaman that we get in James Wan's Aquaman. Because yeah, no, you're right. Joss was like, this is gonna be the frat bro dude. He's the one that's going around saying my man, and just being a general dude. Which Jason Momoa excels at that as well. But in this one, we really got to see a lot more nuance with the character. That whole scene with Volko, where Volko's like, hey, here's the armor and the trident, which we see Aquaman in later, which was finally some context that we needed, that we got. And getting to see that, getting to establish that relationship and who Volko is and how he matters to Arthur was very much needed for Aquaman, because it kind of already predicated on the idea that we knew who this person was, even though we didn't. And it really did that felt more organic for why he wanted to help and why he was trying to help Atlantis. Because just stumbling upon where the mother box was didn't really make sense. But when Volko's like, look, dude, Atlantis is in trouble. This is your mother's kingdom. I know you hate us, but you're also the king. Go do something. I love you. It felt a lot more natural. A lot of the moments that he had just felt natural. I think the biggest thing for me, and it's something that I noticed, and you are always someone who talks to me about the music of a movie. That's one of the things I love about our conversations, is that you focus on the music, because for me, I'm not really as musically focused when I'm watching something. But after watching the Justice League movie earlier in the day and then watching the Snyder Cut, I noticed, so you actually messaged me about this, the scene where Aquaman is walking in the surf and he's drinking the whiskey and then he throws the whiskey and takes off his shirt to get into the water.
Mhm.
So in Justice League, you got like a badass rock song where it's supposed to be like, yeah, look at this guy go, look at him chug, like he's a total dude. And
Yeah.
then we watch the Snyder Cut, and Snyder actually put in it's like an indie rock song, like an indie song
Mhm.
that's it's a lot more mellow. And in that moment, I truly understood the power of a song, which sounds super cheesy when I say it, but like because just even though it's the same exact scene, it is not shot any differently because he put that song in. It really echoes that Aquaman is a man without he's a man without a home. He's stuck between two worlds. He wanders around helping people because he's a good guy,
Yeah.
but he also doesn't know who he is. And just putting that song in just casts him as such a tragic figure. And
Mhm.
it it added so much nuance, literally just because of the song.
Yeah, for me, and then as long as we're talking kind of the major changes, we can talk. I don't think we really need to discuss like the obvious plot changes, like the ending changing completely. But one of the ways, like the differences in directorial, and this is especially relevant now, like how Zach and this is a criticism that Zack Snyder's received on women in his film in the past. In like movies like 300 and Sucker Punch and Watchmen, he doesn't portray them in the most empowering light. I think the best kind of the response to that is his portrayal of Wonder Woman in this movie and Themyscira. And the different Amazonians. They were not, there were no weird butt shots. There were no just legs like panning up from the legs, and then like focusing on the flash landing on her boobs. And there's none of that.
Oh god, that scene is cringe.
And I
Yeah.
think that really for me was like a really noticeable change because I do remember that scene exactly and I reacted that way in the theaters, and I still react that way when I think about it, because that type of comedy got old in like the 80s, where like accidentally falling on boobs, haha, that's funny. But like for me, I think when you treat women, and then you treat female characters with the, if not the same or if not more, but at least like the minimal that it requires for the story to serve its purpose, I think it's a very noticeable difference. And Wonder Woman didn't really do a whole lot different. Amazonians didn't really get a much better fate under under Zack's direction either.
It was
But
a
I
more
think just
cinematic fate.
a little more cinematic, and I think the way they were shot and the kind of the regality and the way they were portrayed, didn't paint them in a kind of a damsel in distress. It didn't paint them in like sexualized beings. It painted them as heroines. And I think, and in the light of new information coming out about the previous director, I think that is definitely an indictment on him, and something to kind of praise about Zach. Like he has listened to his criticisms of his women characters in the past and their agency, and he has worked on it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. And yeah, Wonder Woman, not a big change for her. But
Hmm.
even just in that bank scene you were talking about, she felt more powerful. She felt like she was actually like in the Joss Whedon one. She was doing the super, the usual super punching. But in
Hmm.
this one, she was kicking people and they were going to the other room. More kind of
Yeah.
like Captain America, Winter Soldier kind of deal.
Hmm.
Uh, and yeah, and I loved that she was the one. I mean, because in the original cut, she's the one that knows about Steppenwolf, about the three mother boxes, Darkseid, all that. I like that we actually see her go explore where that arrow hit, and she finds the tomb or
Hmm.
secret treasure room. I don't really
Yeah.
know what we're classifying that room as, but that actually detailed the story of Darkseid and the mother boxes, and that's how she learned. That
Hmm.
was important context for me because there are so many moments in Joss Whedon's Justice League that just
Yeah.
happen. Things like how she knows all this stuff because Hippolyta was not a forthcoming person to Diana, as
No.
she's lied to her about her birth. That's not really.
Well, I think like Joss, and this is kind of like a trademark Joss thing. Sometimes some characters only exist to deliver exposition, And I think Wonder Woman definitely served that role in his film, where her role was to, like, in the first half of the movie was to give exposition, and the second half was to kind of kick ass. But I
Yeah.
think with this extended cut, we can kind of, like you said, you got some context on how she knew things. She wasn't like a Wikipedia in her head, like, oh, let me tell you, let me pull up a chair, young man.
Let me tell you a
So,
tale.
yep.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I mean, yeah, going to important context, like things like I think the biggest thing that was like a super easy scene that they could have done in the Justice League one was Cyborg with the mother box, because him just saying the mother box needs me and then disappearing and coming back with it was like, okay, where was that? Was it in the back of your closet? Which it was.
Yeah.
But
I can't
just,
believe they didn't stick with the Flash like time travel thing. That was
yeah,
such a cool thing.
it was
I
such a
can't
huge
believe.
moment.
Yeah, it was an amazing moment, and I was very surprised that that ended up. If that's part of the reshoots or that on the cutting room and the editing office, but I was very surprised that that didn't make the original cut, because that was like kind of like the big, like that was kind of leading up to that. That was kind of like the big moment of the whole like third act.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Flash was the entire time. Flash was trying to figure out, how to be a hero, trying to be. Although I do miss the scene where Batman says "save one" and then just save another.
Hmm.
I do miss that scene. That was actually something I was in the Justice League that I really enjoyed. Uh, but yeah, no, getting to that time travel scene, him really figuring out what it means to be the Flash, what it means to be a hero, and then honestly, the thing that boggles my mind is something like that could go straight into Flashpoint, because he
Yeah,
just changed time. And if we've seen anything from any movie or any TV show about time travel, you go back in time and you change something, changes back. So I don't know how we didn't get that just as a story perspective. And also it was a great moment to get to see him go and do something that we've seen in the Flash TV show, but get to see him
yeah.
do it on this scale and see it come
Hmm.
down to that. Because, in the Justice League one, Superman shows up and you're like, okay, cool. So this seems like a good time to head to my car because I got to beat traffic.
Yes.
In this one, Superman was there and they still lost. It came down to
Yeah.
Flash going back in time and changing everything.
Yep. Absolutely. And I think that's pretty much like the thing, Superman is OP, and but everyone kind of had the role to play in the third act. Maybe not Wonder Woman as much, but
She
I
was there
think,
to have insults thrown at her by Steppenwolf
yeah,
about her
she
sisters.
at the end, the she went for the head, so that's what's important. But I think, yeah, I think everyone kind of had their own role to play, and I think the characters that were previously kind of pushed to the side had more of a role here, and I think it made the movie better because of it.
Yeah. Well, we're getting close to running out of time, so I can't talk about this movie without talking about Cyborg. There's no way, like, Cyborg's story was huge. That I mean, if they don't put Cyborg in Flashpoint after this, if they don't hire him back on, that's just going to be a tragedy, because we really got to see who he was in this movie. We really got to see what he was made of. I mean, I always loved Cyborg from Teen Titans, but I never
Hmm.
really when they made the choice in 2011 with the reboot, and even before, where to put him on the standing as Superman and Batman as one of like the founding members of Justice League, it was always an odd choice, and it never sat right with me. Not that I didn't think that he could stand up there; it felt like they just put him up there for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
Uh, and so it was like, well, okay, I mean, I love Cyborg, so I'm cool with him being on the Justice League. But in this movie, like, you really get to see him stand up there with him. You get to see the
Yep.
kind of character he can be. And I truly cannot believe, I can't believe that we didn't get this. So we just got a guy that hated his dad. He speaks mother box,
The end.
and he can feel pain in his toes after the mother box thing. That was pretty much like the extent of
Yeah,
Ray
that's
Fisher's
That
Cyborg
was
from
the,
the Justice
I
League.
think, and with the best kind of and I always appreciate when movies do this. They play with their expectations. Like whatever was happening here, Superman couldn't punch his way out of it. You know what I'm saying? Like he couldn't brute strength his way out of the situation. He couldn't laser down the mother boxes. You know, he needed a whole team, and he needed Cyborg to work his magic. And I think, you know, I don't really. If you'll have to remind me, I don't remember how a lot of the 27 Justice one ended. I just remember like the ending of Steppenwolf in that, which was very lame.
Yeah, so pretty much Superman shows up, kicks Steppenwolf's ass, literally, which is like wailing on him. Um, and then Cyborg communicated with the mother boxes, and Superman came, separated them, and then Steppenwolf got really afraid of them. And that's actually something I'm glad that they took out, was the whole parademon
Fear,
smelling fear thing. That was such a big
yeah,
part of that movie. And then I watched the Zack Snyder Justice League, and there wasn't even a hint of it. And I was like, okay, I'm good with this. um, so yeah, and they just like he mother boxes away while being attacked by the parademons, and that's about it.
yeah. And I think kind of like I mean, like Steppenwolf's story didn't really change a lot either. You know, he wanted to find the mother boxes and unite to destroy the world. That kind of was there, but but those kind of Zoom meetings that he had with Desaad, um, those kind of really, for me, it almost painted him in like a sympathetic light, where he just wanted to like pay his punishment and go home.
I just want to see
And
my nephew, man.
I just want to see my nephew. And I think the irony isn't lost on me. The first time he's finally back home is when he's decapitated.
I know, yeah. No, you're
Yes.
right though. Like you are totally right. Steppenwolf literally was just a plot device in the Justice League.
Hmm.
And in this
Hmm.
one, I'm not saying they use Thanos level, developed,
Yeah.
but you really understood why he was doing it. You really understood that he messed up in the past. He
Yeah. He
got
left the stove.
exiled.
He left the stove on, and like
Yeah.
it's really important that he come back. There's a lot of gas being wasted.
So and you really got to be like, okay, this is why he wants to this is why he wants to go back. This is what he's
Yeah.
feeling. And I did feel for him. You're right. He was definitely a more sympathetic character. I was like, I mean, obviously he's about to scorch the world, but at the same time, you know, if we're exiled from our family and our home, we want to be going back. We want to go back there, and we'll probably do whatever it takes to get back there. So
Yeah.
it wasn't a masterful performance compared to the Justice League version, but it was needed to make him stand above just a random dude that is there to do the
Yeah.
things the
Random
plot
CGI
dictates.
monster 5. You know, and I think that's, you're exactly right. I think at a primitive level, his motivations can make sense to anybody. Like they want to go back to where they're comfortable and where they're exiled from. Now the way he went about it, maybe there was things to be work on. But yeah, I think he was a lot more developed, and kind of, it's almost like a tragic, like I said, the first time he went back home is when he's dead. And I think that's kind of like a tragic, like a Shakespearean ending, almost kind of be careful what you wish for kind of thing, like a monkey's paw. And I think that's a credit to the writing. In Justice League, he was just eaten by his minions, and that was it. It didn't really satisfy like this whole movie of like build up, and it was just kind of a lame, kind of like it chapter 2. He was
Yeah,
defeated by it didn't really like, I don't know, it didn't live up to the hype of like the final battle and defeat, and I think this one definitely did.
yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, so let's see. Just real quick, what were your thoughts on the nightmare sequence? Which I was waiting for the entire movie, and I had no
Mhm.
idea that I was gonna have to wait the entire movie to see it.
4 hours later. I thought it was pretty cool. I know, and I don't have as much in-depth knowledge as you, and I think they're adapting like the Injustice kind of story, where I don't know if this is spoilers because this is probably not happening, but where Superman accidentally kills Lois, and just goes berserk and becomes like a dictator, and then the rest of the Justice League has to defeat him.
Definitely.
Um, And I think a lot of it was it was very obvious that to me it was part of the reshoots because Ben Affleck looks skinnier than the rest of the movie. And then a lot of the CGI looked like less polished, like than it did in the rest of the movie. But overall, it was, and you can kind of attribute it to the dreamlike sequence. That's why the CGI was wonky. You can kind of explain it away like that. But to me, it was pretty cool. It's kind of a like a what if scenario. The future could be, because I think when Cyborg was initially on Superman's ship and he's looking at the visions that he was getting when he touched it, it was something similar to this, right?
Hmm.
Superman was
Yeah.
holding Lois's burnt corpse, and Wonder Woman was
Darkseid was
dead.
like, "It's okay, son."
Darkseid, yeah, so it's okay, yeah, and I think that's to me, like, it's kind of a fun tease. Like, is it a dream or is it like a premonition? So I read an article recently, a couple days ago, that HBO is very happy with the performance and like the engagement and everything that they're getting from this movie, and there again. There's another fan petition to release Justice League 2, Zack Snyder's. So maybe we'll
Zack
explore
Snyder's
more of that
Boogaloo.
timeline. Yeah, Electric Boogaloo. Maybe we'll explore more of the future that he kind of painted there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
What about
Yeah.
you?
Dude, the nightmare sequence was. I think that's what got me. I think that's what broke me.
Hmm.
was uh because literally in that like 5 or 10 minute gap time span, somehow Jared Leto's Joker got fixed.
Hmm.
Like, I mean, he still had some terrible dialogue, like the
The
reach
reach
around
around.
thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
I
See,
knew
we
it.
both knew exactly what it was at the same time. But uh like getting that interaction between him and Batman, it was just as much like there was so much menace to it. There was so much of that
Hmm.
relationship between them,
Yeah.
and he was just like, "You can't ever kill me," and it was like, "You're right, and you're probably right about like you're spot on with the injustice similarities." And you know what? That Joker probably killed Lois Lane, or like convinced Superman to kill Lois Lane, because
Yep.
like look at him. But getting to see that interaction, I feel like what I loved about that scene so much was
Hmm.
A, the possibilities, of what
Yeah.
we could get in the future. But B is the thing I love about expanding universes is the interaction between characters you don't normally see. So getting to see Mira interacting with Batman and Deathstroke interacting with Batman, like things that we haven't gotten to see yet. So that was a really cool
Hmm.
moment. Um,
Hmm.
and yeah, it really sets up like the nightmare scenes in Superman were cool. This one felt like it meant something.
Yeah.
And so I am like, very excited. But yeah, no, I love that scene. I love the interaction between Batman and the Joker. Um, it 100%. Like I did not really like Joker's portrayal in Suicide Squad,
Hmm.
but this is where I really saw maybe what they saw in Jared Leto. If I'm gonna be
I
honest,
have
like
a that's yeah, that's a very good point. I think, the Suicide Squad Joker was, it was before Joaquin Phoenix, so the only other Joker that was in recent memory was Heath Ledger. So he kind of stepped into like a loaded gun there, and then anything he would have done would have been negatively reacted. But and then he chose that, which was made it so much worse. But I think when he kind of stripped away the cool, the hot topic jokerness of it all.
the
And he
gangsta.
kind of, yeah, the gangsta. He just became the regular creepy Joker. I do have, and I know we're running out of time. I do have one final question for you about the Nightmare sequence. I know you're a big Harley Quinn fan. How did you feel when you learned in the Nightmare sequence that Harley Quinn had passed away?
Uh, and I love Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn too, so it's like it's a
It's a
double
double
whammy.
whammy. Yeah.
Um, it was a badass line. Like that just
Yeah.
that is what I was talking about the menace when he was talking
Hmm.
like Joker's like, "Well, I killed your Robin." And he's like, "Well, when I
Yeah.
held Harley,
Uh,
she said, fuck Joker."
kill you. Yep.
uh yeah, it was a great line. Yeah, I'm bummed that she's gone. Uh whatever that means. But no,
Yeah.
it did upset me greatly. I was like, "No.
I understand. I know you were sobbing
What
for
did they do
hours.
to my girl?" um all right. Okay, one final question and then I'll let you get going.
Okay.
Um do you think, after seeing people's response to this, do you think we're going to get more of Zack Snyder's DC? Do you think we're going to get a Justice League 2? Do you think we're going to get to see some of these stories play out beyond what's already been announced, like beyond Flashpoint, which I guess is like the only thing that's been announced, really?
Yeah. You know what? I was gonna say before I watched it, I would have said hell no. Like he's had like 4 chances to get this right, and he's fucked it up. But I think the positive reaction from the whole movie exists because of fan pressure, and with the success and the good reviews that it's getting, I think if the fans clamor hard enough, I think Zack Snyder will return.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, now whether or not the whole fans pressuring the studios into doing it thing is,
Mm-hmm. Is a good
healthy or
president to
not
set.
is another discussion.
That's a different discussion. Yes.
Yeah, we don't have the time for that one.
Mhm.
But yeah, no, I do think that we could see more. I know that they've already come out and like we've already heard varying reports about, hey, yes, we're gonna get more, and hey, no, we're not gonna do that. But it's
Mhm.
been insanely popular. It is the biggest thing that's hit HBO Max, and that is compared to all of the other blockbuster
Except
movies.
Tom and Jerry.
You're right. Tom and
Let's be
Jerry was
real.
a masterpiece. I normally
Yeah.
just put that above everything else. It's
Yeah.
unreachable, so there's
Uh-huh. So
not
you
even worth
know what
bringing
to
up.
compare it to. Yeah, absolutely.
Uh, but yeah, no, I think that we might be able to see it.
Mhm.
And I would 100% be down for that. I think that Zack Snyder has established a great world. One of the things that bums me out about getting like the Batman and everything is that we may say goodbye to what we've established in that world. Like bring back Henry Cavill's Superman, do a different
Mhm.
director, maybe, someone who believes more in hope and optimism. Uh,
Not low contrast color grading.
yeah. So, but I'd love to see the stories continue. I would love to
Yeah.
see Darkseid's invasion,
Yep.
but how the nightmare plays into everything. So 100% I'm down. So I guess we will just see, yeah, we'll just watch this story with interest. But yeah. So thank you, Sam, for coming on and talking about Snyder Cut, or Zack Snyder's Justice League. I mean, I feel like we still just like barely scratched the surface. Like we didn't, we didn't get a chance to talk about like Superman being in the black suit and how great that was, Martian Manhunter, just some other stuff that was going on. The
Mhm.
smaller stuff. We definitely hit the broad stuff that I feel like if you really want to see this in a Snyder Cut, boom, there it is.
Yeah.
But thank you so much. My final thing to say is I am so happy that we got to see Zack Snyder's vision, that he got to fulfill it. Putting for Autumn and her favorite cover of Hallelujah, which finding out that that was her favorite song made so much sense after the fact that he uses it for everything. Yeah, him getting to put out his story, him getting to honor his daughter and what she would have wanted him to do. Yeah, this movie will forever have carved its own place in cinematic history, not just in superhero cinema. I think in all of it.
It's
But
definitely the most unique way a movie has come out, and I think, for good or bad, I think it's gonna be in the hallowed halls of the Academy.
I think so too. So thanks again. Do you have any last words for everybody before we head out?
No, thank you for having me. I love to discuss this with you. I know we talk every day, every single minute. So it's glad to see you. Glad to be a part of this with you, and subscribe.
Yeah. Appreciate the plug. Yeah, no,
You're welcome.
I love having you on here, and I definitely look forward to having you on here again. I mean, like I said, you keep up with this stuff. I mean, you're the principal person that I talk to every week about things like, Falcon and
Yep,
Winter Soldier,
for
which,
sure.
we're still going to need to talk about at some point on here on Clearance Track Superheroes.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so I definitely excited to have you on again sometime. For all of you, thank you for being on our first episode of Clearance Rack Superheroes. Whether you're listening to us on a podcast or you're watching us on YouTube right now, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you know where to find us next week. Next week, we're probably talk about Invincible because that's coming out, and we'll probably start talking about Falcon and Winter Soldier, which I was going to talk about today. But like I said, we got through broad strokes of Snyder Cut. We didn't even get through all the nitty gritty and run out of all the things to talk about. So there was no way we were going to be able to talk about a whole nother show going on. uh, but yeah, so Thanks again to Sam. And as always, my name is Tyler. And don't forget to live heroically.